Don't wear my glasses or no glasses?
No glasses.
Heart disease kills one Australian every 12 minutes, but a new report has found progress in tackling the problem has slowed.
It was sort of middle of the day. It was a little bit sunny. No hat, black t-shirt. Typical thing. Felt a little bit hot. Next thing you know, I sort of felt a little bit nauseous. A sort of wave of nausea came over me, and so I jumped out of the tree and sort of got onto the deck, and then all of a sudden I started getting a pain in my chest. I've had them before, but this was pretty significant. So I sort of sat down and, as you do, hoping it was going to go away, and sort of time passed, and about 15 minutes later, the pain dissipated. So I sort of kept doing what I was doing. I went down to the backyard, started picking up the leaves, and then the pain came back, and it was a little bit more intense this time, and I got a pain in my jaw, and my left hand went a bit tingly, so I called for my wife and I said, "You've got to take me up to the hospital." I knew it wasn't right, so we went up to the hospital, as you do, presented an emergency up at Sutherland. When you tell them you've got chest pains, they tend to rush you through, and there's a waiting room full of people, all the usual sports injuries from a Saturday. They took me around in a little room, and one of the duty nurses put a couple of monitors on me. Obviously I wasn't really focused on what was going on, but the next thing I know, they said, "Oh, do you want to come around and sit in a bed?" Thought it was a little bit unusual. So I went around and popped in the bed and sat on it, and the nurse said, "No, lay down," and literally the minute I laid down, next thing you know, the bed starts moving and looking at the roof and lights, and they're pushing me through the hospital into the resus area, and I can hear voices and, who's on call, and, who can we get in. Next thing you know, I sit up and there's half a dozen people all sort of around me. Surgeon's there and says, "You've just had a major heart attack. We're going to take you into theatre right now." And then started wheeling me again, and next thing you know, I'm getting lifted onto a theatre bed, and lights, camera, action.
I think I became a little bit emotional when Lee went into the cath lab, not understanding what was going to happen or what the outcome was. So the unknown was quite scary. I did get emotional.
Got a text message from my mum asking me to call her when I got home, which I thought was a bit strange, so I just thought I'd call her now. She picked up the phone, I could tell something was wrong. She seemed quite distraught, and she told me that my dad had a heart attack. It's not really something you expect to hear. You kind of never really think that's going to happen to someone that you're close to. It always happens to someone else. So I was just a bit scared. I didn't really know what was going to happen.
Lee's always been a very determined person. So, but his own health was something that he was never quite focused on. He focused on his family, focused on his business, but himself, no, there's not a lot of focus on himself or self-care. So I've noticed a big improvement in his ability to put himself first.
Mental health is a real big thing, and from all the literature I've read and the meetings that I've had with the hospital and the nurses and doctors, is they're very concerned about your mental state after a heart attack, and in particular depression. What I understand is that depression is more prevalent with people that have had heart problems. They start questioning whether it's why me, or I should have done this, or I should have done that, or I could have left my family behind. Luckily for me, I've always been pretty strong mentally, But you had those moments in the early days where you just, again, stop and think that you may not have been here, you know. You think about it, sure, but, you just sort of got to keep positive and look at it from a perspective of, I've had a second chance now.
Give me a little bit of a insight of what it felt like knowing that you potentially could have lost it.
Oh, do I have to? Then I'll start crying. I don't think I felt like that though. I don't felt like I had a lot of faith in the doctors and the care that he was given in the hospital. And because he was so calm, I was calm. I didn't think that was going to be something that it wasn't something that I considered at the time.
I guess my inspiration for making this documentary is just to, create a bit of hope for any other people in a similar situation, any other heart attack survivors or the family of heart attack survivors. I think it can be a situation where you kind of worry that, what happens if it happens again? But I think there's definitely reasons to be hopeful, and I think that's probably the word that I want to associate with this documentary as much as possible, is just hope. Hope for a better future, hope for a better life.
Yeah, I suppose, some people say their life flashes in front of their eyes and all that sort of stuff, but, the one thing that I suppose that came from it was, I'm still here and I can talk about it. That's probably the biggest takeaway and the biggest learning from it all.